On Way Out Wild, Destination Nature explores remarkable wildlife destinations with people dedicated to responsible tourism. This month, we dive into Florida's inland waterways north of Tampa with a man who's spent 7 years helping people experience one of the most captivating species on the planet, the manatee. Beneath the sea, amazing and diverse forms of life exist, some threatening, some colorful, some harmonious, but of all the creatures that inhabit this watery world, none has captured the imagination of people like the Florida manatee. Their legend dates back centuries, a myth of the sea passed from one seafaring generation to another. The siren song of the mermaid, the gentle, slender body of, well, maybe not slender. If an elephant could snorkel, it would probably look something like a manatee. In fact, these air-breathing giants are a distant cousin to the elephant, as evidenced by their prehensile snout, which they use much in the same way an elephant uses its trunk. Voracious vegetarians, manatees, aptly nicknamed sea cows, spend most of their time munching on the hydraulic grass that covers much of Florida's waterways. This watery state has over 30,000 miles of tidal waters, rivers, streams, and canals. Many are a natural home to the Florida manatee. What attracts these slow-moving creatures to these areas also attracts boaters. Especially in the colder months, hundreds of manatees move from the cooling waters of the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic into warmer, more sheltered inland waterways. This meeting of man and manatee has initiated great concern for the manatee's well-being, since they do not swim fast enough to avoid fast-moving powerboats. Although not the manatee's only problem, injuries sustained by propeller strikes pose a real danger to these giants. Yet manatees do have their champions.
It's not illegal to touch them. You may do so with open hands.
Educating the public to the manatee is also done through a variety of public awareness programs.
You cannot pursue them. You can't stop them from going in the direction
At Homosassa Springs State Park, visitors are treated to an up-close encounter with the manatee. This sanctuary provides a rehabilitation area for the injured manatee and an opportunity for the public to view them from above and below the water.
Could you see the teeth?
It is one of the only places in the world where it is possible to view the manatee in their natural environment without even getting wet, 365 days a year. But for some, just observing is not enough.
I'd like to swim with manatees.
I think it would be interesting to swim with them. We saw people swimming with them a few days ago in the Wickiwachi Creek.
When you swim with the manatee, you come into contact with an almost unknown life form. It's an amazing creature. It's curious, friendly. Once you've done it, you want to do it again. And it's the kind of thing that you're not jealous of. You want all your friends to come out and get in the water and interact with the manatee.
On the west coast of Florida, barely 90 miles north of Tampa, is Crystal River. It's home to one of the most populated manatee areas and attracts thousands of people each year who come to have a one-on-one interaction with the manatee. Scott Falkenberg started Manatee Tours 7 years ago with the belief that the best way to preserve the manatee is to get people to love it. He believes that passive interaction with the gentle creatures can generate a warm and long-lasting respect.
If you're encountering a manatee, if you just lay there with open arms and be very inviting, the manatees will come to you, and that's what we like to do. We like to let them initiate the contact, definitely. We've had manatees actually hold on to people and hug them. Manatees in general are very affectionate, so they love affection. The main thing that I like is I like to see the excitement that people have when they actually get to see their manatee for the first time or actually touch one. That is a real enjoyment for me.
Debbie Baker, her daughter Kaylee, and friend Laura Downing joined Scott this morning in their quest to swim with the manatee.
The best way to get them to have a really nice encounter with you is to kind of just lay there with open arms, float on the surface, and let them come to you. You can touch them as long as you use one hand and they initiate the contact.
So do they tend to hang out in a certain area all the time?
They tend to leave in the summer, come back in the winter. What you'll find here during the summertime is mainly mother and calves that tend to hang out. They birth up here during the winter months.
Are we going to see any baby manatees with their mothers?
Probably. Mother and calf tend to hang out in this area quite a bit.
Since Crystal River is fed by an underground spring, the water is a chilly 75 degrees, requiring the swimmers to don wetsuits. Manatees, however, come to the springs to escape the even colder waters of the Gulf of Mexico.
There's one right there. He's breathing. There he is right there.
They're in luck. More than a dozen manatee. Now it's time to get wet.
Well, when you first see a manatee, you'll be surprised at the size of them. They're very large. They have small heads, small eyes. They do have a couple of flippers. Manatees have a rough textured skin. They have a big tail. They're really cute and cuddly looking.
The little one swims up to me and just looks at you. It's like they're trying to figure out what you are and what you're doing here.
When mother and calf are nursing, her nipple is underneath her flipper, and that's where the baby will latch onto.
They were using their flippers like arms, and they were pushing themselves from the bottom with their flippers. And they actually were using them like they're arms or legs, walking around on them.
They use those to navigate, to turn. I've actually seen them pull food into their mouth with their flippers.
If I could tell them my thoughts, I would tell them that I think they're cool and I think they're really neat.
They're so ugly that they're cute. They've got little tiny eyes. I just think it's an awesome feeling to have a creature that's so huge and just so massive and so prehistoric looking hanging out with you. And they feel really neat. They're kind of rough. They kind of remind me of dogs, the way they act, the way they are kind of curious. They come up to you and look at you, and then when you get to rubbing them, they get a little more friendly, and they come closer, and they roll over, and you can scratch their bellies, and just kind of like how you interact with a dog or, your pet.
A manatee's day consists of eating, sleeping, eating, and sleeping. For a manatee to keep his metabolism going, he needs to eat about 1/3 of his body weight in vegetation a day. Manatees do communicate with each other, especially mother and calves. They have an audible squeak that you can hear. Travels a pretty good distance underwater. I've actually heard manatees making noise and communicating and seeing them almost 50 to 100 yards apart, and it's very audible.
Sometimes they're sad when we leave. A lot of times they'll kind of follow us. They'll come back to the boat as we're getting back to the boat. They'll hang around and try to get us to have some more interaction.
Haley, Debbie, and Laura's manatee experience has inspired them to love and understand these creatures. Yet, even as they chirp farewell, the future of the Florida manatee is very uncertain. Concern for the future of these lovable sea cows has inspired Scott to develop an extensive website designed to inform the public of the manatee experience.
We try to make it so that people can get a first-hand view of what they're going to see and what they're going to encounter when they get here. The most recent count we have on manatees today is around the number of 3,000. The count has been higher in the last few years due to the technology to be able to count them. Before, it was kind of a one-on-one basis. A person from Fish and Wildlife, Marine officers would actually go out and try to do a count. It's difficult to do a count because, as you can see, manatees move around constantly. They don't sit still.
We do know that we are still experiencing a high loss of manatee life, particularly on the West Coast, due to involvement with motorized vehicles. So we don't see them coming off of the endangered species list anytime soon, if at all.
A debate now rages in Florida and Washington over their continued need for protection.
Well, manatees have been here for 160 million years.
We have to figure out who's the subspecies here. Is it us or is it the manatee? Of course, the manatees are very lovable and we want to keep them. There's no reason for us to lose any bit of our wildlife.
A proposal to develop new manatee sanctuaries has stalled in a fierce legal battle between federal lawmakers and an international coalition of 18 conservation organizations. In a recent letter to the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, 10-year-old Marley Rivard may have said it best. We need to realize all of the things that make the United States of America the greatest country on earth. It's not just the Grand Canyon, the Great Lakes, and the beautiful mountain ranges. Manatees, too, are part of what helped make the United States of America the greatest place on earth. If Florida's manatees capture your imagination, visit Scott Falkenberg's informative website at manateeinfo.com. You can find out more about these legendary creatures and even plan a trip.